Thank you, Madam Chair. In the wake of the reprehensible terrorist attacks against our closest ally, Israel, on October 7th, it's paramount that we work to break down the dark web of connections that enable such violence. We've stood by Israel in its darkest hours, and today we reiterate that support, ensuring the safety and security of the Israeli people from these threats. A primary source of the threats against Israel comes from the funding that these terror groups receive from Iran, which is why it is so critical that we kneecap Iran's ability to provide this support. The Stop Harboring Iranian Petroleum Act, otherwise known as the SHIP Act, which I introduced earlier this year with my House Foreign Affairs Committee colleague, Jared Moskowitz of Florida, does just that by going after one of its primary funding sources, the Iranian oil trade. The U.S. has rightly sanctioned Iranian oil, a common-sense measure in the fight to prevent Iran from acquiring additional capital with which to fund terrorism. However, it's disheartening to see other nations do not share this commitment. In August of this year alone, China imported a staggering 1.5 million barrels per day of Iranian oil. China is sending a clear message to the rest of the world by supporting the Iranian regime. In doing so, China and other importers of Iranian oil have become complicit in the nefarious acts carried out with that funding. The SHIP Act, which we are marking up here today, currently has over 200 bipartisan co-sponsors. The support is a testament to Congress's united resolve against Iran and against its enablers. The SHIP Act specifically mandates that the President impose sanctions on entities that knowingly process illicit Iranian oil, from individuals operating ports that accept vessels transporting Iranian oil to those refining this oil. Every enabler in this supply chain must face consequences. The bill also clearly states that these sanctions are not a permanent feature. They can be terminated if Iran stops supporting international terrorism and halts the development of biological and chemical weapons and missiles. Yet beyond the provisions of the SHIP Act, there's a larger message here, a message about the kind of world we want to live in, a world where nations collaborate to thwart terrorism, one where allies stand up against any entity that compromises global peace and prosperity. Israel's pain is a somber reminder of the consequences of complacency. We must ensure that Iran has no money with which to fund extremist groups that destabilize the Middle East and the world. We need to send a clear message that countries, that they must reconsider their priorities and not allow the weight of their transactions to indirectly shed innocent blood. We as the United States possess the power and the moral obligation to shape the global order. The SHIP Act is more than just a piece of legislation. It's our commitment to a safer, more peaceful world. It's our pledge to Israel and every nation that the United States values above all else peace, security, and freedom. Let us work together to get this bill passed to ensure peace, safety, and security in the Middle East, especially for our ally Israel. I look forward to engaging in discussion today about the merits of the bill and why it is so critical that the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the United States Congress is united in opposition to Iran and its enablers. I have here amendments in the nature of a substitute to make a few changes to this bipartisan bill, largely technical corrections, and other additions to ensure there are no unintended consequences of the bill. The goal here is to impose sanctions on Iran and its enablers and cut off their funding that they have used to massacre the Jewish people. That's exactly what this bill and this ANS is targeted to do. At a time like this, we cannot be passive. We must take action. I yield back.